How is it going, everybody? And welcome to this week's episode of the Hot Take HITI Hoedown. It's me, Fernando, the Lonestar Halo. I am joined here by Cowboy Vince. We're going to talk a little bit about this week's hot take. And what is it? Tyler Anderson. Is he actually going to be an all-star this year? We think so. And we think we have the argument. All that and more coming up right after this.
From Anaheim down to the Texas plains, hot takes flying riding off the reins. Lonestar, Halo, Cowboy, Vince, calling it bold, never on the fence. Hoedown time, turn it up loud, hot takes are ringing, drawing a crowd. No matter how wild, no matter how strange, ain't no limit on the takes we say.
How is it going, everybody? And Vince, welcome to the screen. You excited to talk about this week's topic?
Oh, yeah. And, you know, like the song says, no limits on these takes for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't had any bad ones, I think, but obviously as the year go on, I'm sure we're going to have some. You know what I mean? That's just the nature of the beast. But thank you guys for joining us here. Once again, this is the Halo Hot Take Hoedown. We do this every single week where we take a hot take that we come up with, or somebody on the team, the HITI team, or perhaps you guys, if you guys are interested in any hot takes, send them our way, or I'm sure Vince's DMs are open too. Whoever you find, if you hit us with a hot take, we'll definitely talk about it and maybe put it on the show. So keep those coming if you guys are interested in sharing those with us. But before we get into any of that, once again, this is your reminder that this is the Halos in the Infield podcast network. Every single week, Vince and I will break down one of those hot takes. Also, we do an Around the League show, a minor league report show. We do the Lonestar Halo show. There is tons of content here at the Halos in the Infield network, as well as the other friends in the Halo sphere. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media. Make sure you follow Vince on his social media. We'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to thank our sponsors. Let's start off with Brewheim Brewery. Drink local, cheer louder. The OC Dugout, your home for premium sports memorabilia. 714 tickets, 714 tickets. The best deals for Angels games and beyond. Why? Because there's no hidden fees like the other guys. The price you see, well, that's the price you pay. But we'll make it a little sweeter for you, because not only are you not paying those hidden fees, no. You kick those to the curb, buddy. We are going to give you 10% off. Use the code HITI at checkout for 10% off this order and the next order. Like Vince has said in the past, for concert tickets, for Angels games, you name it. My girlfriend's going to go watch the Jonas Brothers. She used code HITI at checkout. I've used it for wrestling tickets. Honestly, if it exists, I guarantee you it's probably on 714 tickets. I have found one event that's not on there, but they have almost everything else. So, also Underdog Sportsbook. Please gamble responsibly and use code HALOS. Make sure you're 21 plus to do that, please. But enough about all that, because I know you guys are ready to hit subscribe. I know you guys are ready to hit thumbs up. Let's get to this week's topic. Before we get into that, Vince, go ahead and plug your social media. Where can they find you if they don't already follow you?
At Angels_Cowboy. Once again, at Angels_Cowboy. More content on the way. Might see a special Mother's Day one in a few days. And then there should be plenty more in the near future. The more games I go to, more opportunities. But yeah, just the summer's coming for sure. So I'll be out there in the sun more often.
You hear that? Vince is going to ask people if they'd rather go to Mother's Day brunch with Mike Trout's mom or ride a bull. That's this week's episode. That's this week's question. No, there you go. Maybe I was right. You got to check it out to find out. So this week, Vince, I want to do something different. I want to jump straight into the hot take because I feel like it's going to lead us to a couple of tangents. And then we can kind of go from there. You know, would it be good if it happens? Would it be bad? Okay, so this week's hot take. Do you got it in front of you, Vince?
I do.
All right. Take it away, sir.
Tyler Anderson will be a 2025 American League All-Star for the second year in a row. Now, last year, Tyler Anderson did have an all-star type season. He was lights out. He was the best starting pitcher in the rotation for the Angels. However, there is another argument that could take into consideration. Was he the air quotes token Angels all-star? Because in the last few years, the names that we have always heard going to the all-star game, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and for 9 consecutive years, I believe it was just Mike Trout. He was going every single year. Last year, Trout got hurt super early in April, and it lost him an opportunity to go to the All-Star game. And so the Angels were out of luck and thinking, well, Shohei's gone, so who's going to be the All-Star? None of the offensive hitters were really All-Stars, especially the young guys. I mean, there was the argument of Logan O'Hoppe, but he was competing against Adley Rutschman for sure. He's going to be competing with Rutschman for a long time, for as long as Rutschman is in the league. And then Zach Neto, I think he was kind of in an injury at that point, but he still wasn't. He was competing against top shortstops as well. He's competing against Bobby Witt Jr., at least, who's probably going to be the starting all-star shortstop for the American League. So for Tyler Anderson to make it last year, it was great to see him be represented because he did have a tremendous season, a worthy first half to be an all-star. But of course, it seems like he was the only guy that the Angels could send. And the one note I'd like to mention that I really love, Wayne Randazzo really is always on the Angels side in anything. He was on our side with the Shawnuel on base streak where they gave him an error when it should have been a hit. And Wayne Randazzo just went in on MLB for that. And he went in on MLB during the All-Star game because Tyler Anderson did not touch the rubber at Globe Life Field in the All-Star game last year. And that stings big time because, number one, it's his first All-Star game, or second, because did he get in with the Dodgers? Really quick?
I'm sure he did. I'll look that up real quick while you're talking. For
sure, yeah. So if it was his first, throw him in there because who knows if he's going to get this opportunity again. And he's in the other side of 30, as you could say. So, and also he was the only lone representative of the Angels. He should have got at least one inning under his belt because he might not be able to get the opportunity again. But since this hot take of the week, he might get that opportunity. And for what we have seen in the first month of the season and with a start in this month of May, yeah, there's a high chance that he will be joining a couple Angel All-Stars as well. If Mike Trout could come back sooner and have a tremendous month of May, second half of May, and a great June, might see Mike Trout in the American League. And then, of course, the hot take we had a couple weeks ago, our second show was Logan O'Hoppe being an All-Star. I think O'Hoppe has a shot now because Rutschman's kind of struggling right now. So O'Hoppe's making a push for sure, especially after the game one of the series against the Blue Jays. So it would be nice to see Tyler Anderson because he's showing it for sure. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just he's proven himself to be an all-star for the second year in a row.
Yeah, I think the only thing that could potentially stop Tyler Anderson from getting in, because I think that as of right now, there's a lot of variety of things that could go bad. I won't speak him into the universe, so I won't even say that, right? But I mean, it's a sport. You guys know what I'm talking about. This thing happens all the time. So hopefully that doesn't happen, especially because this is a guy who is on the tail end of his career, right? He's 35. So his best years are obviously not in front of him, unless he's Barry Bonds. And that's no discredit to Barry Bonds. I loved Barry Bonds growing up. But chances are his best years are behind him. So the fact that he's having a bit of a comeback is good because, yes, he was an all-star to start the year, right? At the trade deadline, his value was at an all-time high. everybody wanted to trade him, right? Hey, his value is never going to get higher. It was all over Twitter. A lot of Angels fans wanted him to go for the right deal, of course, right? You don't want to give up Tyler Anderson for, whatever, for just anybody. But, look what we got for Luis Garcia, right? If you get 4 guys for Luis Garcia, how could you not get at least 2 or 3 decent prospects for Tyler Anderson? But I digress. The point is, I think the only thing that could stop Tyler Anderson from making the All-Star game is Zach Neto. I think Zach Neto is very likely an All-Star where we currently are. And his biggest issue will be, is he eligible? Because of his short injury stint, to start the year, missed the first, about 3 weeks, almost a month he missed. Maybe that can keep him out if he doesn't have the minimum amount of required at-bats. But, he's the Angels' hottest hitter right now. He's been the best hitter since he came back. And he's been a spark plug. And I know that's kind of funny to say for a team that really hasn't won since he came back. But the team obviously likes having Zach Neto around, right? They respond positively to having him around. He has been the bulk of the offense when the Angels were struggling for those, 7 games there. So I think the fact that the Angels may not be competitive at the All-Star game could hurt them, because if a team isn't competitive, you're probably only going to have 1, maybe 2 representatives, right? So maybe Neto and Anderson get in if the Angels are struggling, or maybe it's just one of them. But if all 3 of them are having a good year and the Angels are in last place and 10 games under 500, they're probably only going to get 1 person in. That's how it works, right? Let's call it what it is. The All-Star game is a popularity contest. Most people don't know that Tyler Anderson plays for the Angels anymore. They just don't. You go to a random person in New York and, hey, who's Tyler Anderson? Some of them are going to know. Some of them aren't. They are going to know by Shohei Ohtani. They are going to know by Mike Trout. You know what I mean? These big-name guys. Tyler Anderson might have been that guy when he was with the Dodgers, but since he came to the Angels, he has been a serviceable to all-star guy, back down to below serviceable, because he ended the back half of last year pretty miserable, right? A lot of us were like, see, look, we should have traded him. I didn't think we were going to get this resurgence out of him this year. Clearly, he's figured something out. I'm pulling for the guy. Vince, I'm taking it. If I'm a betting man, I am putting my money on Tyler Anderson right now to make the 2025 American League All-Stars.
Yeah, and it'd be nice because the one thing that you can take into consideration is it's might help trade value as well, because he's in his final year of his contract, the 3-year contract he signed. And if we're not competing at the deadline, which is highly likely, probably 80% likely, but, baseball is a funny game, but still, I just want to throw it out there. And we might get something out of him, and it'd be nice too, because last year a lot of teams were pulling for him, and this year I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing, because there are some playoff teams who are going to be pushing for the playoffs. The Giants for sure would be in consideration, because they're in the Bay, they're still in the state of California. Doesn't have to go that far. The Padres, the Padres are already good enough, but maybe they want an extra arm down in San Diego. And then maybe the Cubs, they need an extra arm too. There's so many opportunities to trade him, but the only thing is, he has to prove that he is a valuable piece in a rotation, and number 2, you make an all-star team, your stock just goes way up in anything. Not just in trade value, but also in money value too. Like, you look at Jarren Duran, who won the All-Star Game MVP last year. His value has gone way up. Now he's probably a top 3 left fielder in the league right now. So yeah, it'd be really nice to see him get back there. And like you mentioned, I want to go back to you saying the whole Zach Neto thing. Yeah, like, Neto could be in place of us because, 1, he's the hottest hitter. Number 2, at the time of this recording, 11-game hitting streak, and he is a spark. But obviously, we haven't had much of the spark. But he is a spark plug. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that more push for Zach Neto would probably happen because he is a young player and he is part of that new generation of shortstops. It's basically him and Bobby Witt Jr. And then if there's anybody else out there who is just as fun and electric shortstop as those two, I think they are the generational shortstops right now. I mean, Lindor is at the tail end of his career, and there's plenty more. I can't name off the top of my head, but you get my point. So Anderson and Neto would be nice. I would really, really love to see that in Atlanta. I think they're more deserving, and especially Tyler Anderson. Give him an inning, please. I mean, like, he didn't get it last year. He should have got it. He should get it this year. So,
well, I've been interested to see when he started his last game before the All-Star game. Was it like a rest day thing? Because sometimes that does happen with pitchers.
Possibility. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Angels like said something like, "Hey, he's going to be pitching in a couple days." Like, don't. But the thing is if that was the case, then why didn't he drop out of the All-Star game and then have somebody else fill in for him?
I mean, who would have filled in for him last year is what I'm trying to think about. I mean, there was a time where Neto was batting like 270, and I was like, man, this guy's got to make the All-Star game. But I remember him skidding a little bit before it. O'Hoppy's numbers weren't exactly there around the All-Star break last year. I'm just trying to think who else the representative could have been.
Well, maybe, but also another note too is the last time we had a player back out of the All-Star game because of for whatever reason, but we actually know the reason. It was 2017 with Mike Trout, but nobody filled in. They didn't fill our spot in. Like, Trout got hurt, and they said, "Oh, we'll just leave it open for them." It's like, dude, Trout wasn't part of anything. He didn't go to the red carpet. He was in the
66ers.
Yeah, he didn't do the festivities here's Mike Trout, who was elected to start but unable to due to injury, but we want to honor him. He didn't go or anything. He was rehabbing. He was rehabbing the thumb. So
but it's funny that they still sold those jerseys.
They did, yeah. There was a lot of them that year for sure.
Wanted to make that money. Yeah, I was pissed off that year because, honestly, I was already upset that Andrelton Simmons didn't make it that year. And then as soon as Trout, essentially, quote unquote, dropped out, kind of by force because, he was rehabbing, I was like, okay, great, put Andrelton Simmons in. It still baffles my mind that he never made the All-Star game. I think ever. I know he didn't make it as an Angel.
No, he didn't make it as an Angel. I don't think he did.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think he made it as a Braves either.
No, and I think to point that out, I think the reason why he didn't make an All-Star team was because he didn't have the offensive value. He had a defensive value for sure. And I mean, we're in a new generation of baseball. Like, you talk about, well, Ozzie Smith was definitely a defensive, infielder, but he made all-star teams. It's like, yeah, but back in the 80s, like, it's defense was the thing for the shortstop. Like, if you were a shortstop, your value was defense. You weren't much of a hard hitting and a power hitting player. I mean, I think Cal Ripken Jr. was probably the first power hitting shortstop that started that trend in a way. So I think that's why Andrelton Simmons didn't get an opportunity to be an All-Star in any year, because
it said he was batting 283 at the All-Star break.
Okay, so there's an exception right there. So yeah,
I mean, he was he was batting 265 after the All-Star break, went on a skid where he ended up batting 283. Let me see. Had 200. He had 60 of his 212 hits in the second half of the season.
Okay, but at the same time, like, he wasn't much of an offensive hitter, and plus, look who he's competing against. Lindor was still in the American League at the time, so that's really hard to compete with. So I mean, it's Francisco Lindor, of course, and that's kind of the same thing today with it could be for the next 5 All-Star games, Bobby Witt Jr. is the starting shortstop for the American League, I mean, this you can make the argument too for catchers. Adley Rutschman's going to be the starting catcher for the next 5 years for the American League.
Kind of like Salvador Perez was for just a fixture for the longest time.
Well, he might do it again this year. I mean, don't be surprised because he is. I mentioned it back in the Ohapi episode was that Salvador Perez is the David Ortiz of catchers because David Ortiz, like David Ortiz in his final year in 2016, wasn't he batting like 260 at the break or something? Like he wasn't batting 300 at that time, but because it was his final season and he announced his retirement and he is Big Papi, of course he's going to get the nod as a starting DH for sure. And then the other argument too was Albert Pujols in 2022. Like he did not have the best season. He wasn't. I mean, he was on track to his 700th home run, but of course that happened way after the All-Star game. But Albert Pujols was on his last legs, and he still got into the All-Star game because they did a new thing where it was probably the only time. Well, it'll probably happen again where they did the legend selection, which was Albert Pujols for the National League and Miguel Cabrera for the American League. So, I mean, don't be surprised if Salvador Perez gets a nod too behind the dish, and maybe and even there's even some pitchers out there too that might get it. I mean, don't be surprised if Justin Verlander gets it either.
I was about to say Verlander, Scherzer, maybe. I remember there was people that were upset about it. They were like, "Oh, well, this is so stupid. They're like making a spot." It's just like, who cares? It's an all. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like it's a fake game. It's an exhibition. Who cares?
The All-Star game is supposed to honor the best players. It's supposed to honor the best players of that of the year, but you also have to take consideration of the generation because there are these kids who grew up watching these players and then they just want to see one more time. Like Clayton Kershaw starting the All-Star game for 2022 in Dodger Stadium, and then it's like some people say this is rigged, blah, blah, blah. It's like yes and no. I mean, Clayton did have a good season that year, but at the same time, how many times are you going to see a Hall of Fame pitcher, a Hall of Fame generational pitcher like Clayton Kershaw pitch in his own stadium in the All-Star game? You just have to do it. You can't say no. You can't come out there and just like, hey, Clayton Kershaw should pitch the All-Star game because it's in LA. No, he's not going to pitch. You can't do that. Because that's just going to ruin the game, and it's going to ruin and crush a generation of fans. And I happen to be one of them. Like if we get an All-Star game back in Angel Stadium, hopefully it'd be great in like 2030 probably because OC Vibe will be opened up. There's a possibility we could make a push for it.
Would the stadium be 70 years old? No, it's almost 60 right now.
It's 60. It will be almost 60. No, I don't know because it's the 65th season, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's close. It's pushing 70. Let's put that. Well, Disneyland's 70 this year. So do the math there.
Well, yeah, Angel Stadium was built in what? 55.
It opened in 66. Disneyland in 55. Angel Stadium in 66.
Okay, yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. So my point is, if we get an All-Star game back in Anaheim and Mike Trout's not starting, if he's still playing around that time, that would hurt so many people. Because if I made a prediction, 2030 would probably be our year for an All-Star game because, like I mentioned, OC Vibe will be opened up across the street where Honda Center is, and that will generate a lot of fans and a lot of money to the city. So it's supposed to be done by 2028, so therefore 2030 would be the best shot for us to host an All-Star game. It'd be great. I would totally love that for sure. And I think we all would down here in the Orange County.
Yeah, I would definitely go out there for that. I made it such a point to go last year when it was here in Arlington. All-Star games are just fun. They're fun to attend. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just it's all the festivities of it, right? You know, when it was in Petco Park in 2016, they had like the block party outside, and they had the fan fest at the convention center, and they did the same kind of thing here with like the whatever they called it, the All-Star Fair. But
Fan Fest.
It's always they didn't call it Fan Fest here. They called it something else. It was Fan Fest, but I mean, same idea.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was all outdoors, so that kind of sucked. They had like a little room inside in the very back where the esports arena is. Yes, here in Arlington, Texas, there's an esports center. But yeah, in there they had like all the autograph sessions, and they also had that cool thing where it's like they had ballpark foods from around the MLB that you can go there and try various things. They didn't have anything Angels. They had like some stuff from like the White Sox and the Cubs, and well, they didn't even have a churro dog. I was disappointed in that. I've been wanting to try that, man. I've been to Chase Field like 5 times, but anyway, I'm going on a tangent now. Let me bring it back to should the Angels trade Tyler Anderson? So if they are able to, get him in the All-Star game, I guess if he's able to get himself in an All-Star game, the Angels need to not be as picky this year about trading him, right? At the end of the day, we're not expecting this team to contend. Honestly, even if we're within 5 games of a playoff spot, I would still consider moving on from him because, once again, the Angels are not supposed to contend this year. So what you can't do is be like, well, we're still in the hunt. Maybe we should buy. No. Look at the Texas Rangers in 2023. They weren't supposed to contend, right? They were supposed to start contending in 2024. Unfortunately for them, they had a World Series hangover. But whatever, they'll take it, right? They won the World Series. But all that to say, they didn't go all in at their trade deadline, right? They were like, you know what? This is working right now. It's clicking right now. Let's not fix what's not broken. And it worked out for them. So at the end of the day, if the plan right now is, hey, the Angels are going to hopefully contend next year and the year after that, so that's what, 2027? The window's supposed to be wide open in theory. So with that being said, don't change course. Let's trade Tyler Anderson, get what we can for him. Are you going to get an Estevez haul or a Luis Garcia haul? Maybe not, but you don't need to get that. There's a lot of teams out there who are expecting to contend that want a left-handed pitcher who is a potentially 2-time All-Star with your team. He was an All-Star with the Dodgers in 2022. So that's a 3-time All-Star. At that point, he's going to have, about $6 to $7 million you're going to owe him. Find me a contending team, Vince, that wouldn't take you up on that. Yeah, maybe you're not going to get Vance Honeycutt, but you're going to maybe get a serviceable prospect.
Well, you also have to look into which teams have farm systems that are in the top 10, because you don't want to just send them anywhere. I did talk about the Giants. I think that's the team that might push for him the most. But unfortunately, they're on the bottom when it comes to prospects. They don't have that strong of a farm system. So that is something that you have to take into consideration. So the teams that would push or that do have top prospects, Detroit is number 1. I think they have the number 1 farm system. Seattle, I believe, is number 2. The Dodgers are number 3. The Cubs, I think, are 6th, like 5th or 6th, somewhere around there. So you have to look at top 10 farm systems. You can't just look at just anybody who's looking for guys, because you need to look at who you're going to get in return for the type of value that certain pitcher has, especially Tyler Anderson. I get it. Tyler Anderson's 35 years old, so that's going to come into effect. But the thing is, Tyler Anderson isn't that overpowering pitcher. He doesn't pump 95 miles an hour. He doesn't blow guys by, but he does have an effective changeup that he can get hitters out with, and that's what a lot of teams are looking for when comes to playoff contention. But the Angels have to do their part and do their research and say, look, we need prospects to build for our 10-year gap that's going to start next year, because the window is supposed to open in 2026. And the reason why I say that is because, to quote Bill for Top Fan Rivalry, we have this conversation all the time. Teams go through 10-year stretches. Our 10-year stretch started in 2016. So therefore, this is supposed to be the final year of that 10-year stretch in theory. Because the reason why I say 2016 was because 2015, we had that playoff run, and we had that big collapse that happened in August that took us out of the playoffs, and then we had to depend on the last 3 games in Texas to try to get in, and we couldn't seal the deal. But the argument is we got close. But you got to remember, you can't have a bad month and be in that situation. We weren't supposed to be in that situation in the first place. So therefore, that's why I say, so 2015 was the last time we competed for the playoffs, and then 16 on to now, under 500 seasons. We haven't had a winning season since then. So therefore, the 10-year stretch is supposed to end this year, and then next year is when just a little crick of the window opens, and 27 should be full go. So right now, you have to be at the point of what prospects do you have? Well, get this. Yeah, you might have prospects, but do you have top 100 prospects that you can give us? Or better yet, well, yeah, top 100. There you go. Because nobody's going to give up their top 5 for sure, or any top 5 or top 10 prospects that are on the pipeline right now to us for sure. So if they're in the top 100, yeah, go for it. And Tyler Anderson can do that, but it comes to that All-Star game. If he gets in, boom, he's definitely going to be looked at for sure. But once again, the Angels have to do their homework when it comes to which prospects that they want to select and which teams they want to talk to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't exactly know if 2-3 months of Tyler Anderson is going to get you a top 100 prospect. But if you're Perry, you got to do your due diligence and try, right? At the end of the day, that's what it is. I just don't want to happen this year what happened last year, where the asking price was just simply too high. You got to be realistic about this kind of stuff. But, hey, if you're going to get a lower 100 prospect, maybe from about 80 to 100, great. If that's what you get, and then you get what Blake Snell calls a slap dick prospect, great. You know what I mean? You get what you can. You have to give your team the best chance to succeed. And I understand there's going to be people who are like, oh, well, you never know what's going to happen with the prospects. A lot of those guys just fizzle to be nothing. Okay, great. Well, Tyler Anderson is literally going to fizzle to be nothing if he walks away in free agency. So I would much rather take my opportunity on Joe Schmo and at least have the potential of him being a serviceable major league pitcher, hitter, whatever, for 2 or 3 seasons. That still got me more than Tyler Anderson was going to give me for those final 3 months of a team that probably isn't contending. And once again, he's going to walk away into free agency, especially if he ends up having a good contract year. Could you re-sign him? Sure, maybe in theory. But, I mean, the Angels already have so many left-handers as it is. I'd prefer if we didn't re-sign Tyler Anderson at this point. I understand right now he's having a great year. But, we want the Angels to start taking steps forward with young pitchers, not with pitchers who have their best days behind them. There's nothing wrong with having a veteran starter, but we're rooting out Kikuchi for 2 more years. So I feel that kind of already out. What's the point of Tyler Anderson at this point? You know what I mean? We don't really need his leadership anymore. This team isn't trying to contend, isn't expected to contend, I should say. So if you can trade him for a top 100 prospect, great. If you can even trade him for somebody maybe who's just off of that, you know what I mean? 105, 110. I'm not going to complain about that. But you want to give your team the best chance to be competitive next year and the year after that when this window is actually open. So let's do what we have to do to get that, especially if Tyler Anderson's an all-star.
Well, another thing you have to consider to add on is that how are other teams going to play this trading game? Because what if they screw us and say they give us I take it back. What if Perry says something like, okay, do you have any MOB ready prospects for me? Because that's what it seems like the strategy we've been doing for the last, 5 years, or at least during Perry's tenure. And we talked about this in the hot take that we did back in February, that Perry does have a tendency to go for MOB ready prospects. Hence, when he drafts players, he got Christian Moore, and most likely he's probably going to get a couple kids out of the SEC. We had this conversation during that pre-episode. So don't be surprised if Perry starts to do a move like that, saying, hey, like, we are trading our guys because we're getting ready for our future. However, we still got Mike Trout on our team, and we still want to get him in the playoffs just like everybody else. Who do you have that are ready to make it to the major leagues in the next 2 seasons? It's going to be tough because we might get a prospect from Tyler Anderson that is going to be ready in about 5 years. Maybe we get a younger kid who's maybe 19 years old. He says, oh, well, we got this 19-year-old that you guys can build him up. And then Perry's going to say, we don't want a 19-year-old that's going to take 5 years. We want a 22-year-old who's going to get here by the time he's 24, 25. Like, give us some of those. Maybe that's the only thing we probably have going, but we're in a tough situation right now where the window opens next year, theoretically. But when you have Mike Trout on your team, who you're trying to get to the playoffs again, what do you do in this situation? Do you go for a 3-year build-up prospect, or do you go for a 5-year build-up prospect? So it's all over the place right now, just thinking about this situation.
No, and I completely understand where you're coming from, but I think the good news is the trade deadline is after the draft. And the draft is really going to set the tone for this Angels organization, right? Because by then we'll know who the number 2 overall pick is coming to the Angels. And knowing we talked about this yesterday in our Talking Halos crossover, not to, promote that, but, hey, go check that out. We were talking about the draft, and Perry is, as you said, known for drafting major league ready players. So with that being said, does he take a major league ready starting pitcher, or does he take a major league ready position player? Because that's what's really going to determine what direction they can go with the Tyler Anderson trade, right? Personally, I think the Angels really, really need to start worrying about their outfield long term. So I don't mind taking a guy who's like AA, but pretty darn close. For instance, like Christian Moore right now, right? He's in AA, but, he's not too far off. There is a legitimate avenue where he is a major leaguer by the end of this year, let alone the fact that he earned being a major leaguer by the end of the year. So I don't mind taking a guy like that, 22, 23, had a deep college career, and that's why he is in those early 20s, or a guy who is at the AAA level, who is ready to get to that next step, but he's just blocked, kind of like Logan O'Hoppe. That's kind of what the Angels need to do, because I don't like the idea of them getting a Kyron Paris type guy when he was drafted, who was 18, 19, or a Joe Adell type guy, because Billy Epler was in love with guys who had the athleticism and they were high ceiling guys, but the floor on those guys was also extremely low, right? No disrespect to Kyron Paris, but before this year, none of us ever thought that guy was ever going to be a major leaguer, right? We saw flashes, and now we're like, hey, maybe this guy could hang around. And now we're just hoping he gets to that point again. Joe Adell, hot or cold. He's always been like that. And Jordan Adams, another Billy Epler guy, hasn't done anything yet with the Orioles. So the point is, I don't trust this organization with those guys who, they can be good, Vince, but your organization has to make them good, because the Angels don't have that kind of track record right.
Yeah, because they're not putting money into the development, and we had this conversation a couple episodes ago where they're trying to get these guys ready in 3 years, when traditionally a guy's ready in about 6 years. That's why a lot of teams go for 18-year-olds, because they build their way to get to the major league level. But then there's kids out there who don't want to sit through that whole development program, and that's why they go to these colleges. That's why they go to SEC schools. That's why they go to these Pac-12 Big West schools, because they're just gonna. It's just as competitive. I mean, the SEC. You said it, to quote you. It's an equivalent to AA baseball, basically. And that's why you see a lot of these SEC players who get drafted and they're already in the show in about 2 seasons. And Paul Skeens made it in like half a season, basically, or a full year almost. And then Dylan Cruz was also the same thing with the Nationals, and now he's the everyday center fielder. So what the Angels, what they should do, I mean, with the draft is in a couple months, and then, of course, the trade deadline in July. Or they're both in July, actually. I take it back. So you're right about the outfield. I think they really need to look in the outfield. Maybe another third baseman. They need a future third baseman for sure, unless Christian Moore converts to a third baseman, because where do you put Kyron Paris? I don't think Kyron Paris is a center fielder. I'm just going to throw it out there. I mean, it's like he's in a situation where he has no choice. He has to go wherever he's told, and he has to make the adjustments. And he's improving his routes, but he's rushed out there. You know, they're rushing him as a center fielder, and plus, I mean, who else? I mean, Joe Adell is the other option. He was actually the number 1 option after the Moniak release. So now it's Kyron Paris is the backup because Adell's playing right with Trout being out. So there's so many situations that you have right now, and yeah, you got to look at the outfield because Taylor Ward is not going to be here any longer. Mike Trout might be a full-time DH after this season, most likely. I feel that coming. So now you have this big hole because you have your infield set. You already got Neto, you got Shonowell. You got to have Paris at second or more, or like I said, Christian Moore might play third base. You never know. But I think a third baseman would be pretty nice in the draft or even in a trade. I think we could get a solid third baseman in a trade for the future, or we get some outfielders. So there's got to be some outfielders out there that we could push for when it comes to the trade deadline. And as long as Tyler Anderson keeps doing what he's doing and he continues to be that all-star pitcher that he was last year with us, and he still just keeps us in ball games and boosts his value, it could be a fun trade deadline when it comes to how many prospects we can get in return.
Yeah, and we will have plenty of time to talk about the trade deadline as we get closer. Vince, anything else in closing besides, plugging the social medias and all that for today's episode?
Well, yeah, I'll say at Angels_Cowboy once again. That is my Instagram. And the last thing I want to say is it is Mother's Day weekend coming up, and I'd like to give a shout out to all the moms out there, all the baseball moms especially. And I want to talk about really quick, in closing, my favorite moments with my mom is going to Angel games and getting that opportunity, because we've been to so many Mother's Day games. We try to go every year whenever the Angels are in town. They are this weekend, but unfortunately we're not able to go. But the memories that I've had with her at Angel games, she enjoys it. And she's not a big fan. She's not a religious fan like me, but she depends on me whenever she has questions, and I tell her everything. But to be next to her, sharing nachos, sharing a hot dog, and when I turned 21, sharing a drink together, it's so special. So to all the kids out there and the young adults whose parents are still, whose mothers are still in their lives, if you have an opportunity to go to an Angel game, please do it. It is a great opportunity, not just to bond with your parents, bond with your mom especially, but yeah, it's a little emotional to talk about, but you know what? We love our moms for a reason, and for my mom to do that with me, to be a baseball mom and to go to my games and watch me play and cheer for me, that means a lot. So to the Mama Angels Cowboy.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I obviously don't live near my mom. I get to see my mom about twice, maybe 3 times a year if I'm lucky. I think about all those times that I was a teenager, right? And my family would say, hey, let's go get dinner on a Saturday. And it's like, nah, I'm going to go hang out here with my friends. You know what I mean? You think about all those times. And I know I'm not alone. We think about all those times where you were too cool to hang out with your family because you were a teenager. Never doing anything wrong. It was just like, playing football with my friends in the park. And, at the time, you don't think of it, but, it feels like those days were just yesterday when in reality they were 10, 15 years ago. So, now that I'm sitting here as an adult and these kind of things roll around every year, Mother's Day, my mom's birthday, and I'm not able to be there, just makes me extra sad. So, luckily I'm lucky enough that my mom's still here and I have a good relationship with my mom, So, we talk every morning, but it's not the same. You know what I mean? So yeah, for anyone out there, if you're lucky enough to be near your mom, your grandmother, whoever your motherly figures are in your life, give them a hug because, you're going to miss the day that they're not around anymore. Right. I mean, we're all borrowed in this world, life's full of partings, and not to get morbid, but, you don't think about this stuff until it's too late. So, hey, enjoy those Mother's Days out there. You give all of your moms our regards. Hey, the podcast I was listening to, she wanted to shout you out, mom, grandma, aunt, whatever, whoever your mother figure is. But yeah, thank you to all the moms out there. Thanks for bringing that up, Vince.
Of course, yeah.
But on behalf of all of us here at Halos in the Infield, on behalf of Vince, give him a follow. Give us a follow. Give us a 5-star review. Make sure you check out all of our content, whether it's Halos in the Infield, Vince, or anybody else under the HITI umbrella. We thank you guys for your continued support. We definitely wouldn't be here without you guys. If you guys are going to the Angels game, look for the guy with the cowboy hat. He's not the only one. Vince has said he's had a couple of showdowns already. So he's starting a trend. We'll say that. He is the trend-setting Angels cowboy.
Gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, guys, on behalf of all of us here at Halos in the Field, thank you guys so much. And y'all be good now. You hear?